They told you play it safe, stay where you are, keep your head down, don't reach too far, build someone else's dream instead, trade your vision.
So hi everybody, and welcome to this session of First Things First, where we talk about using AI to start a law firm, and we focus on the things that really need to be priorities. So instead of focusing on fancy consulting courses and expensive all-in-one technology tools, we're talking about things that you can pick and get up and running from the get-go. And today I'm really excited to have Rachel Huff here, who is a technology consultant extraordinaire and the owner of Cloud 925. And Rachel, I think it's best if you just introduce yourself because she is up to speed on a lot of these tech tools and you're going to get your questions answered. And I'm sure also get a lot of tips on how to get started. So thanks for being here, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. So a little bit about me is my mom started her own firm kind of by necessity about 2 years before I was born. She was pregnant with my sister. So she kind of went on the solo journey of starting her own firm, kind of, you know, not really by choice as much. So that's kind of how I grew up. And she ran our firm out of, our extra bedroom in our house. And if I wanted, extra money for go to the movies, I had to be scanning papers or doing whatever. I've always loved technology. I was like that kid that, would like bug to be on a computer, not really like playing computer games, but more of like figuring out how like a computer works. So then my mom wanted to be on the cloud, and I was 12. So I helped her sign up for Clio and get her on Clio and all of that. So I've definitely been doing this for a long time. But so it's been a ton of fun, like seeing how everything has grown. I ended up still going to law school, graduated, and then I opened up my consulting firm, as Carolyn mentioned. So now I help other solo and small firms use AI and technology instead of just buying something and then having it sit on a shelf. I am really into kind of looking at lots of different tools. I'm not really into telling firms, okay, this is exactly the tool that's going to work for you, and this is the tool that's going to work for everyone. I think there's a very wide spectrum of tools out there, whether as user friendly might be, user friendly tools might not be the cheapest, or user friendly tools might not be the easiest to set up. So I think there's a wide section, and we'll probably get into it on some of my thoughts on that. Um, but yeah, other than that, I live in South Florida. I love my job, and in my free time, I love being out on the water and soaking in the sun of the Florida sun. So it's great. But yeah,
Thanks. So we're going to get into some of the specifics, and I'm going to ask you actually to speak both to phone systems and different types of technology and internet products. But before we get into any of the details, I think it's important to have to take a look at the big picture, because I often see people posting on a Facebook page saying, what practice management tool should I use? And there's no context and no other information. So just from a big picture perspective, what are some of the factors that people should be considering or asking themselves but when they're
yeah.
choosing a
So
technology?
yeah, so I'm always in the Facebook groups. I'm always commenting and things like that. And just like Carolyn said, there are people say, I'm starting out my own firm. What case management system do I use? Or they might not even say I'm starting out my own firm. Like some people just say, what's the best case management system? Okay, well, that is an extremely broad question, and there's a million factors that go in. And anyone who just immediately answers that question is telling you a biased opinion. I think that Carolyn would agree with that. I think that there's so many different factors that go into it. I would say that especially since we're kind of focusing more on like the solo side, what I like telling firms, especially that come to me, and this has been, actual for like solo have come to me, they're like, I'm ready to start my firm. I've heard you talk about blank in a group, or I've heard someone talk about this. Can we do this? Can we do this? And one of the biggest things I tell people is, especially if you're going to be a true solo, is to know yourself, know how tech savvy you are. How much work do you want to put into it? How customized do you want it to be? What are you looking for? I think something that's really, really good is demoing a bunch of different ones, seeing what you like about them, and then, going back and doing a second demo. Maybe you liked one, and then the second demo you did, you're like, oh, I really like that I can draft engagement agreements in that one. Don't be afraid to go have a second demo with, the first one and be like, hey, because obviously these tools have so much going on. It's hard for the demo people to show you everything. So that one tool might have that, one might not. The reason why I also say that if you know yourself and you know you're tech savvy, like if you're someone who you're like, I love building these things, I love using AI, like I want to work more in my systems than I probably want to practice law, then you might look for something a little bit more custom. But, you know, something like Airtable, I think is kind of in that middle to higher range of custom where it's not out of the box. You have to do a lot of building, but it's not completely custom, like coded through AI, where if there is a problem, it's easy to fix. There's lots of tools out there for it. But I've had firms who come to me starting out and they're like, we want Airtable because we heard people talk about it. And I'm like, well, how high maintenance do you want it to be? And they're like, I don't want it to have any maintenance whatsoever. I just want something that I can put data in and it works. And I'm like, then you probably don't want to be on Airtable because Airtable is going to be maintenance. Like there's more likely for something to break the more custom you go. The reason why so many firms like use and love tools like Clio in my case and Smart Advocate and all of those is because they have support systems behind them. They have features that you don't have to build yourself. Like you're never going to go into Clio and build out a feature. You request it for them. And then if they get to it, they build it out. Now, that's when you kind of have to look. And I like saying it's like a big sliding scale where you have to evaluate with yourself, where do I want to be? Another thing to think about too is that when you're growing, something I tell people, especially when they get, maybe 3 team members of 3 people or 5 people, like, is there someone on your team too, or someone who would be willing to help you with that? Whether that's hiring a consultant, maybe a paralegal is super techie and they can help you maintain it. So I know I don't have, one tool fits all, but I also think that if someone is going to tell you like, oh, this tool is the best, they probably are getting a kickback from it. So
Yeah, no, that's important. So I think what we'll do now is maybe go through some of the categories of tools that people might use. And we'll start with like phone services or whatever people are calling voice now. I mean, you're not calling it, it's not really telephone anymore, like you used to get a landline. So what are the options for phone? Because I saw that your company just has struck an arrangement with a company that you like. And can you talk about some of the features of these AI phone systems and which ones are going to be easiest for somebody to set up out of the box and get a number and get something on a landing page so people can start calling?
yeah. I personally have tested um like at my mom's firm that I've worked at, we've tested, let's see, we were on GoTo, Vonage. I think those eventually became the same. I can't remember if they eventually merged. Ring Central, and then now Quo. Quo is the one that Carolyn mentioned that now Cloud925 is like a preferred partner with. The reason we're preferred partners with them is because we reached out to them, told them, hey, we love your product. They were like, hey, we haven't really gotten to tap into the legal market. And we just happened to be, one of the first legal consultants that talked to them about it. And it's been really cool because we've actually helped guide them on, their Clio integration and how they can better serve lawyers and things like that. So that's been really cool. But as Carolyn mentioned, we just posted that, we are referral partners in there. But also, like in that post, I said on the bottom, which I think is super important, is that, this tool is not for everyone. Like this is not the best tool. I even tell the Quo team when I was on my call with them developing our partnership that, there is times that Quo goes down. And like that is something that I'm always transparent about when I tell people about Quo. Like they have more downage, like more out downtime or whatever than like Dialpad. So that's something to think about. I think personally that Quo is the easiest to set up, and I think it's the most user-friendly platform. It works on a computer, it works on a tablet, it works on a phone. It's very, very simple to set up. I think you could get it all set up in 30 minutes or less. I also know that lots of phone companies kind of put you through the ringer when it comes to getting texting set up because now of all the new laws when it comes to texting. We had an issue with GoTo where we couldn't get the texting set up when we switched over to Quo. it was like we got it set up within days. It was very easy. They actually help you go through the texting. The another downside about Quo that I do let people mention is that you cannot have any physical phones. It's not one that hooks up then with like a office desk phone. So that's something to think about. One of our clients that I work with, they are looking for a new phone system, but they love their physical desk phones, like not like, your smartphone, but a true physical phone that you like, you pick it up and everything. That is not, Quo does not do that. Other ones that I know that a lot of people are really loving are Dialpad, which is I know they have better they don't have as many bugs, I've heard. And then I've also been seeing a lot of news lately with VXT. To my knowledge too, they are a phone platform built for attorneys. Or like that is like one of the major groups that they are built for. So I definitely would say those are typically the three that I recommend for people to check out first. And those are typically the three that I hear the least complaints about. I will tell you right now, there's not going to be any phone system out there that is never ever going to give you a day of grief. I've never found one that has absolutely no problems. So just keep that in mind when deciding. But I would say those top three are usually the ones I tell people to go and demo and look into. And
And
phone systems are also all around the same price usually too.
okay, so I was going to ask you about price, but also the types of features that today's lawyers starting out should have. I mean, like 5 years ago, even you might not have text as a default, but now it sounds like it's something that should be built right in. So, what are some of the features they have, including AI features, if any?
Yeah. So, something that I tell people to look for, and to my knowledge, Dialpad, VXT, and Quo all have it, is recordings. To be able to record your phone calls. Now you can turn this on and off. There's lots of different features in the settings for all three of these where it can either, like, if you're in a two-party state, it can beep, it can give, a quick voice memo at the beginning, letting them know that you're recording, whatever it may be. Um, I think that texting is so important nowadays, even if it's just appointment reminders. You're much more likely to have someone show up or even like answer the phone on time when you have something where you can text them back. Another great thing that I see in phone companies that do texting is that specifically, I know in Quo, if someone leaves you a voicemail, you can send an automatic text letting them know that you received a voicemail. Or if you're out of town for Christmas, we always change it so then there's a text that goes out saying, "Thank you, we're closed for the holidays, we're monitoring, we'll get back to you." I think those extra little touches to let them know that they received your message is going to take it one step further. Again, I think it's never been more, I'm going to say more fun. But I don't know if maybe you all will think the same. I don't think it's ever been more fun to open up your own firm. There's so many possibilities and there's so many things you can just do right at the beginning that most other firms still aren't doing. Most of the firms in your town probably aren't sending confirmation texts or texts to let them know when they get a voicemail. If your new firm is, now you're already going to be one step ahead of them.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
great.
I would also say that a lot of them now are doing AI summaries. They're not going to be perfect, but they're still better. I mean, you can go through and view then call logs without having to read the entire transcript. You can look at these AI generated summaries and know what they're about. Um, Another thing, and this is kind of depending on how, tech savvy you want to be. If you're more on that, I want to be a bit more on that tech savvy route, I would look for something that has an open API. I don't know if you guys are going to get into that at all in the sessions, but essentially what that means is you can go into Claude or ChatGPT, and if you use something like Clio, or I'm trying to think of the other ones that have like open APIs. But if you go into your case management system that also has an open API, you can actually have them connect. So every time you hang up your phone, it can now go and be stored in your case management system. That's one less thing that you have to do. A lot of that's so many reasons that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, someone would be hiring a legal assistant to do, to file emails, to record phone calls. So there's so many little things like that that you can help solve to free up some of your time, um, to, make sure that if your first hire is doing something a little, maybe a bit more substantial. Um, Another thing is if you're going to be hourly billing, when you hang up the phone and then it goes into your system, it can now bill for that time automatically, or at least create a time entry that you go and approve. I know that that's one of the biggest things that I see for solos is they fall back and they're not as fast to be invoicing themselves. So I think that's something that can be super helpful when those call logs, and then also talking about emails and communications, when those can be automatically logged into your case management system, that's one less thing you have to do on the billing route.
So does anybody have questions about phone before we move on to other types of things? And there'll be a chance to ask questions at the end too, but I just wanted to reach out and ask. So I guess let's get into kind of the big gorilla, which is the case management system. And if you could talk about first, just give people an overview of what it is and what it does, and then what the options are, which is extensive.
Yeah. Okay. So the main point and the reasons why case management systems, I'm assuming were to hold data. Um, I talk about Clio a lot because, I am most familiar with Clio because I've been, using Clio, I guess, since I was a kid. But there's lots of different ones that perform very similar to Clio. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's take Clio, for example. Clio doesn't really do a ton. It stores data. That is truly what a case management system was first built to do. It was meant to store all of your data, right? So let's say that you are an estate planning firm. That case management system is meant to store who your client is, what emails you have, if they have any payments due, if you've called them, when their meetings are, what documents you've done, what tasks you've done. And then they have these things called custom fields, which essentially is where you can just you can make your own fields where, let's say you wanted to have, what is their draft delivery? How are you going to deliver those drafts? Um, Also, recently in the last decade, we've seen a huge push for stages, which I think is so important. If anyone was back on Trello back in the day, which is essentially like a Kanban board, which helps you put all of your cases into different stages and see where every case is in the timeline, that is a huge thing to use when trying to figure out where all of your cases live. Everything we just talked about, they're not really doing anything yet. It's just storing all of this data. The back end of all of these systems are just a bunch of CSV files, which is just Excel files. The reason I know that is because I've done a bunch of migrations now over the last few years. Um, so all it really is just raw Excel files in the back. And then companies like Clio have now created this user friendly interface to be on top of these Excel files that you click around to. Now, once you get into like automations, which a lot of case management systems now have built into, that's adding the next layer. Now it's actually doing something. So let's say that when you open up a new matter, now an automatic email gets sent to them, welcoming them to your firm and telling them a little bit about you and what to expect. That's obviously not just storage of data. That's now something that's actually happening. A lot of case management systems now can do this for you. They send on your behalf these emails that you've obviously customized or branded for your firm, all of that jazz. They can be based on what type of practice area it's for and all that stuff. That's when it's actually doing things. That's been the extreme major push I've seen in the last decade for these case management firms is that, you know, even 5 years ago, people were complaining that all these were data storage, and that's kind of what they were built to do. Now we have this next push for all these workflows. Um, did that answer your question on kind of what is a case management system?
Yeah. So
Okay.
that explains what it is. And what are some of the features that people can or should look for when they're selecting a case management system?
Um, I would say that now, especially in the age of AI, and I would say that again, it's never a better time to start your own firm. And if you're going to start it, I would highly suggest, pushing for, to incorporate AI wherever you can. If your firm, I mean, if your case management system has an open API, and if you don't know what that means, or if you don't know if it has that, I would always ask on a demo, or you can usually just Google it. So if you Google like Clio API, then Clio's entire API document will pop up, and now you know it has an API. What essentially that means is that if you are a Claude user or a ChatGPT user, you can go on connectors or apps, and you see about 200 apps that have partnered with ChatGPT and Claude that can sync with just a touch of the button, right? It's very, very easy. If you're using one of these AI tools, you can sync it with like your Gmail or your Outlook or your calendar, things like that, and it can access that in your safe, secure environment. Now, Clio, obviously, they've not really partnered with Claude. They're not one of the 200 tools that have, or however it is now. So what they have instead is an open API. You can essentially tell your Claude, hey, I use Clio. Can you build me a connector so you can connect to Clio? And it will actually build it for you and have all of the access. It can help you open matters. It can help you log communications. It can help you do all of those things. I think that right now, that is one of the main things that if I was looking for a case management system, that is something I would be looking for, is that open API access, or something that already has a ton of integrations already built out. So yeah, that's something. I would say reporting is another huge one. If you can't easily see reports, you're going to be doing all this work, and then in 3 months and 6 months and a year, you're not going to really know where things were, how they came about, who are your referral partners, where should you be nurturing, all of those things. So reporting is extremely important, and ease of getting to those reports is also extremely important. Another thing is, does it integrate with other things? So, go on its integrations page online, see how many things it integrates with. If you already are married to a couple different things, let's say you've already adopted VXT as your phone platform. You want to make sure that then your case management system, if that's you already married to that, make sure that it can, talk to your case management system, because if not, now you've hit a bumper in the road. Something else is maybe they have AI features built in. A lot of these case management tools are getting pushed by us as an audience for this. And so thankfully now they're creating these features. Some also have automations that are already built in at a push of a button. You don't have to use extra tools like Zapier or Make or things like that. And I would also talk to other people who use it. Get feedback from them. Like, all of these demo people on all these sales calls can tell you a million things, but I would go and, go in a Facebook group and be like, hey, what does everyone think about this? Again, just like I said about phone systems, there's no perfect case management system, and you're likely going to run into some kind of problem with at least once. So take what everyone says with a grain of salt. But yeah, and then going back to the theme of figuring out where you want to be on the sliding scale. If you want something that's extremely out of the box because you don't want to take a lot of time to set it up, that's okay. Just make sure when you're getting a case management system, it is something like that. You want to make sure then your onboarding is very quick. But if you want something a lot more customized, then go more that route.
So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so then I guess also the case management systems. What about the invoicing? I know Clio has invoicing, or I guess invoicing is another feature of these platforms too.
Yeah, I would definitely say if you are going with one of the more out of the box, like legal specific case management systems, if you're going to be going with a legal case management system, I will say at least make sure it has invoicing and billing. Now, invoicing and billing on something like Airtable, which is not a legal case management system, it's, just whatever you want it to be, then, that's when you're going to be hitting a couple of snags, and you're going to have to run through a few hoops and, get invoicing and billing set up. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it is a couple extra snags. So if you are going to be using a case management system, make sure that it does have invoicing and billing, because you are paying for that when you're paying for that legal specific tool. And that way it all syncs into one. One of the best things you can do is have all of your data talking to each other.
Yeah, no. So somebody asked a question about Abacus. The firm she worked for uses it, says it seems like a clunky dinosaur from 1994. Is it that bad, or is it just a user error or user needing training? Do you know anything about
So
Abacus?
So I know a little bit. It kind of reminds me of Time Matters, if anyone remembers Time Matters from back in the day. Um, Actually, a lot of people who are on things like that one in Time Matters, are stuck on it because they do really love it, and they don't really want to see change. If that is, if you're part of a different firm and that's what they love, then it's probably going to be what you have to do. I've also seen, and this is going to sound really, really funny, but it's something that, I tell my clients and I tell people when they're looking for something. I am at least someone that if I'm going to go use a tool and that tool is not pretty, I'm likely not going to use it as much. I know that sounds insane, but there's actually studies done on this. You're likely less you're less likely to want to use a tool and actually, fully optimize it every single day if you don't like the look of it. Because if it looks like a dinosaur to you, it's not going to be what you want to open up on your computer right when you wake up. That's why there's so much money in interface building because people pay so much to these web designers to make their products look so nice and user friendly and pretty. So people actually want to use it. And there is studies done that prove that if you have obviously a more user friendly platform, more people are going to use it and more people are going to adopt it. So if you're starting out completely fresh and you can pick whatever case management system you want, pick one that works for you and that you like to look at because I hate to tell you it, you're going to be looking at it all the time.
So now somebody asked a question about security issues with using an API to connect. What can you speak to on that?
I don't know. Did you already touch on like Claude security and stuff?
No, we actually have not talked about security yet, so
Okay.
we haven't talked about it at all.
So funny enough, I typically tell everyone to ask Carolyn about security questions. But what I will say is that based on what Carolyn has taught me, is that you are pretty good as long as you're on the Claude Teams plan. And correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, when you're connecting, so if you're connecting, let's say, the Clio Open API to your Claude Teams plan, you are getting all the security of the Claude Teams plan. Your Clio data is not hitting somewhere else first, really, and being spread out to then go to your Claude. Essentially, what is happening is that when you type into Claude, hey, what all matters have I opened up this week? Claude is then going to shoot out to Clio, grab that information, and come right back. So as long as you're okay with your data being inside of your Claude, you are okay with your API, if that makes sense.
Right, right. It usually follows the security terms of the AI system you're using. So then turning to another category of products, and we'll leave time for questions for any more questions, so keep putting them in the chat. But we've seen the development of a lot of, I guess, task-specific AI tools for everything from estate planning to discovery to PI. What is the relationship of those tools to the case management system, and what things should you look for when you evaluate those tools?
Um, so are you talking about like ones that are kind of like AI wrappers?
Yeah, I guess like
Okay,
something that might do discovery production in Family Law,
gotcha.
organize your discovery, that kind of thing. Yeah, just
Yep.
wrappers on top of the other
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah. So I will give an example. So last week I demoed Supio for the first time. I wish I had more time to demo every single product on the market. But I was able to demo Supio for the first time finally. I got around to scheduling it with them. And I thought that was a really, really cool tool. At the end of it, I asked the guy and I said, he was so, so, so nice. And I said, essentially, is this an AI wrapper? Like, and I knew the answer. I wanted him to say it to me. And he said, well, yeah. And I was like, so if I was coming to you and I was saying, well, I use Claude, why should I use your tool? What would you say to me? And he was like, we're not here to cater right, to someone who's going to be going and fully custom building in Claude code their whole own system that, they spend hours and hours and hours a week building, right? We're kind of talking again about that whole spectrum of like, where do you want to land on how custom you want to be? He was like, we're targeting the average person who wants to be adopting AI. And I think that's a really good tool because it's giving you a lot of what you would be getting in Claude and kind of wrapping it in a very nice user interface for you that is going to section out all of your cases. It's going to, have easily that case management system integration. It's going to easily have that OneDrive integration, all the integrations, I know they're pushing for even more integrations. It's going to easily all put that together, which is something that you would probably be um, spending time every week maintaining on your own. So what I tell people again is, decide how much time do you want to be spending and how much money also do you want to spend? Because are you going to spend money on convenience, like something like Supio or these other task management systems? Or, is it going to be a little bit more heavy lifting? Another thing is obviously security. Someone just asked that question. Are you more on the cautious side when it comes to where you want your data to be? Then you probably want something more that is from a legal vendor because they're likely going to have much higher security enterprise questions. That's definitely something you should ask them during the call, though, because I remember actually seeing that in a Facebook group, like that some legal vendor, I don't remember who, did not even have like full enterprise security systems, which is fine, but that's something that you should tell people and not hide because most people are going to legal specific platforms for that extra enterprise security on top of also the extra added convenience. Again, I would say that if it's something that you're going to use and you're going to get your money back for, then use it. If you know that you want to take a course on AI and learn from Carolyn and learn from some of us other like gurus who love to do this in the fun in our sleep, then go that route. You can probably develop something even cooler than what they have at Supio. But again, it's kind of to figuring out what you like. Another idea that I always tell people is if you don't know what you want yet but know you want to build something, go test out some of these tools for a couple months. Go do a couple month contracts with some of these tools and test them out. Do it now when you only have 5, 10 clients and it's easy to move information in and out of them or move systems instead of down the road when you have 400 clients a year. Test them out, see what you like about them. And then after, a few months, you now develop what you like, what you don't like, what you wish they had, blah, blah, blah. Now go make your own system because now you have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Does anybody have any other questions about anything specific or tools that people are looking at? So I guess the other question I would ask you is what mistakes do you see people make? Because I'm sure you have people who come to you who unfortunately have made mistakes that you have to unravel. So what are some mistakes people make and how they can be avoided?
So especially for people who are just going to be coming out on solos for your own, I would say figure out really what your practice areas are going to be. I know that is not as heavy with technology, but I think most of my answer actually this question is not going to be as heavy with technology. It's going to be a definitely figure out what practice areas you're going to be, and make sure those are ones you really enjoy, and figure out the workflows for them. And I'm not talking about like what Zaps you're going to build in Zapier for them. I'm literally saying like sit down and write out or use Whisperflow and create a document how exactly those fully work, because that is always the step that I see firms don't make. Instead, they're kind of, building an automation here, adding a little bit of AI here, doing something here. And we eventually now are having to go back. And I always like starting with intake because if I can get that data in at the beginning, we don't have to enter manually in the next 3 stages. So that's something I see is that I work with these firms that are either a year old or 30 years old, and they've actually never sat down, even in all of that time, and actually written out what systems, like what are their systems. So if you have those written down, you'll be able to know exactly, where to add in AI, where to add in some automations. It's probably even going to help you figure out what case management system is best for you. And then also now you have all your workflows and operations built out. So then when you do get to make your first hire, they have something to go off of. And that's so easy to do in AI. Something that I tell my clients when they first start working with me, if that's something we're going to be doing, is going through all their operations and their workflows. And usually they tell me that it's either they wrote them out 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago and they're completely stale, or they absolutely have nothing. Or maybe a couple different proxy areas have a couple of things, but no one knows what anyone else is doing. What I tell everyone is I say, go turn on a recorder device. I don't care if it's whisper flow. I don't care if it's your phone voice recorder. I don't care if it's like an old dictaphone. I don't care what it is. Turn it on and walk through it as low level as you can be. And I'm talking like if you know you're going to be printing on a piece of paper, grabbing a pen, signing the paper, scanning it back in, that's how low level you want to go, because you can then dump that into your Claude or your ChatGPT and be like, okay, this is my workflow, or this is what I want my workflow to be when I open up my law firm. Help me find spots now that I can integrate AI, I can add automations, and it can help you build those and build workflow maps. I'm a very visual person. Build workflow maps. And now you have those that you will be able to have now for your entire firm. And as you build new things, you can update it. And now you don't have to worry about that in 3 years from now. You don't have operating docs.
No, that's really good advice. And I think it's a really good demonstration of, how the processes that you use in your firm integrate with technology. Like the tech is not just about the tech. I mean, for some people, I think tech is just about the tech, and there's people whose minds work like that, but I'm very practical about it. I just wanted to use whatever tech is going to do what I want it to do, and what I want it to do is the process. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So do we have any other questions? Because you can see that Rachel's a very valuable resource. Actually, Rachel, if you could also share how people who are just starting out can work with your firm. I know you work with a whole range of different firms, and I know you have a lot of different options. So maybe you could share that and how people can get in touch with you and work with you.
Yeah, so our audience is solo to small firms. And when I say small firms, I'm thinking about usually 20, 25 people and under. That's what I grew up in. And that's usually the firms I like the best. So that's usually the firms that I think are more fun, are more open to adding in cool new stuff. When you get to a bit of a bigger firm, it's a little bit harder, if anyone knows, to kind of like add in new workflows. Everyone's kind of, been doing the same thing forever. So that is who we cater to. I love solos. I love small firms. They're definitely our niche. So we do coaching and consulting. So if you do decide that you want to adopt Clio, my case, Smart Advocate, whatever it may be, and you want some help learning how to build it out, building or how to use it, or making sure you're using it properly, that's something we help firms with. If you're looking for a more custom route, that's also something we help firms with. If you're like, hey, I want something more custom, but I know I don't have the time, or I don't exactly know how to do it, and I want some guidance on that. That's also something we help with. So that's our one-on-one. We also have our Cloud 925 hub, and that is essentially like we're building it into a community where people can go and talk to it. So maybe you're going to go on there and say, hey, I'm a solo firm or I'm starting out and this is my practice area and this is what I'm looking for and blah, 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 blah. Has anyone had, had good success with this or that, or I don't know even where to start. And we keep it small and for a reason. So it's not, a bunch of random bots talking in groups and stuff, because I know that's been happening a lot. And then we also do weekly build alongs. So if you're someone who says, I'm building my own firm, but I only have 30 minutes a week to work on AI stuff or work on more of the fun stuff, we do weekly build alongs that are only 30 minutes. So my goal is that you log on, you have us on another screen, you have whatever we're building on the other screen, and at the end of that 30 minutes, you have something new to work on with your firm. So that's what we do. And we also do then cohorts for practice areas and tool cohorts. And we have resources and automation guides, and we do group Q&As every week and all that fun jazz. And then lastly, we have where we can actually come to you and help you train, or we have our in-person events. We just had our first one that Carolyn came and presented at. back in end of June. I can't believe it's already been a month. And then we're having our next one in January. And it's 2 days and it's very building heavy. And it's for whether you're a total beginner to more advanced. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that event was terrific. And even if you don't think you're going to use it all the time, it's just so satisfying to learn something different. I think it really sharpens your legal skills when you do something out of the box or that's outside of your comfort zone. And everybody who was at that event built something, which I thought was amazing. Um, okay, if there are no more questions, I'm gonna post this recording. And I think Rachel, did you give us your contact information of how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website is cloud, just as it is in the sky, and then the number is 925.com, and my email is rachel@cloud925.com. Or you can find
Yeah.
me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, on all those. I try to post tips and tricks on there too. So
Yeah, so this was fantastic, and I hope this was helpful for everybody. I mean, obviously, we can't go through a setup of every single tech tool out there. There's a lot of resources that are available already, but I think when you go at it and look at the big picture and know the questions to ask and things to do, it can help you get started and make it a little bit less intimidating. So thanks, everyone. On Friday, we're going to do a little bit of using AI to work with your email, and you know how to get in touch with Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was really amazing. So
thank you
thanks,
so much for having
everybody.
me. Good luck,
Yeah.
everyone. You can do it.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye bye.